and each one of them has their own dynamics. So again, you could grab this joint and wiggle it around. Watch your tree react to anything you have in your scene, whether you wanted to put some shake on this for an earthquake or put some wind in the scene like in the original example. This technique can end up being pretty powerful.
Now, another cool thing I was able to do. We have the plugin called Forester. We'll go over here and basically you click on this forest tree and it creates a tree. You can go to their like tree library and pick a tree. It's pretty straightforward. And then there's a thing called hyperwind. If we turn that on, it basically creates some motion. So if we go down here, maybe turn up the, I don't know, wind amount, and you can see that the trees start to sort of move around. And now there is a way to replicate these. They have a little tool called the multi-cloner. And if we put that in there and create a surface like a landscape, we can actually clone to that and maybe just turn it down to like 5 and then just turn on display points off. Definitely added a lot to the shot. All right, so we ended up using a plugin to create this animation because we weren't sure if there was going to be enough time to create something custom. But in true Video Copilot fashion, so Jake is going to take you through a really cool technique that doesn't require any plugins that gives you some great dynamic results.
So for the trees, we just combined a couple easy to use tools to create a pretty cool looking effect. It's some bones, some physics, some light rigging. It's not too bad to set up, so let's hop right into Cinema. I'll show you how we did it. So here's what we're gonna be creating. It's just a generic tree model, but if we grab this joint and we wiggle it around, you can see it sort of reacts. It's also set up with wind, so if we turn on this wind here, kind of blows to the side. And I also put a displacer on all these leaves, so we can just turn those on, and it kind of helps sell the effect a little bit further. I can also grab and duplicate any number of these branches. So if I hold Control and drag a branch out here and reorient it, maybe pull it back some, yeah, it's pretty good. So let's hop into a fresh project and I'll show you how to set this up. So I already have this generic tree model imported. You can make your own or maybe find one online, but this is the one we're going to be using. So first thing I want to do is split this out into the trunk and the branch as two different models. So let's click our tree and our polygon selection tool. And I'm just going to grab this bottom part here. And if we right click and choose split, it's going to make a new copy. And let's call this new one, which is just the bottom part, trunk. And this top one is going to become the branch. I'm going to move the branch up way above the trunk, and the trunk is tiny. I'm going to fix the anchor point real quick, and then scale it up and get it into position. Let's hide the branch for a moment so we can rig just this trunk. I'm going to go into the side view here, go to character, let's grab a joint, and I'm going to hold Control and create maybe 4 points. And make each new point a child of the last, so that way we have a full chain. Now if we grab all of those joints and then the trunk, we can come up to character, choose commands, and bind. Now before we go any farther, I actually want to extend the timeline by a bunch, so when we're playing with the physics, it's not going to just keep looping over and over again. Okay, and next step is going to be to add an inverse kinematics tag to the first joint. So if we right click, go to character, choose IK, and we're going to need to set the end. So click tag and drag joint 3 into the end slot. Now we can go to dynamics and enable it. If we press play, probably nothing's going to happen in your scene, and that's just because the bones are sort of balancing on top of each other. So I'm just going to grab this first one and rotate it slightly to the side, so that way we have a better idea of how these are interacting with one another while we're working with these dynamics settings. I might want to turn the strength down to something like 20% and maybe play with the rot hold a little. Oh, not quite. Maybe the default of 30% felt about right. We can definitely spend a lot of time dialing in these dynamic settings. But let's move on to the branch for now. So I'm going to reset the rotation on the joint and turn back on the branch. And then also let's hide the trunk. I'm going to go back to the side view and we're going to create more joints. So again, under the character tag, grab a joint. Let's move this one up into the position of the bottom of the branch, and holding control, I just want to fill the branch up to the point where the leaves are sort of just getting started. 4 points on this felt just about right. So again, each one a child of the last, and we've got our full joint set up. Select them all, select the branch, character, commands, bind. Now, with your joints and your branch selected, I'm going to hit Alt-G to put those into a group together. I'll just name this group branch, and I'll make it a child of the very end bone on the bone setup of the trunk. So that way now if we turn back on the trunk and we press play and we grab the first joint of the trunk and we move it around, it sort of flops a little bit. But we're not quite there because obviously the branch isn't moving at all. So let's do the same IK tag to the branch setup. So on joint 1, character tags, IK. Under the tag, let's set the end to joint 4 here. Go to the dynamics and check enable. Except the difference between the branch and the trunk, and the reason we did 2 different joint setups, is that I wanted the trunk to be stiffer than the branch. So the trunk had about a 20% strength. Maybe let's try somewhere like 18 on the branch. Now I think the floppiness is feeling almost there. Maybe we'll try 19%. But if you notice there's just too much movement, even though there's not anything going on, no wind or anything, you can play with this rot hold setting a little bit more until you can get it to settle. So 34% feels about right. So now, if we grab the first joint and we wiggle it around, we have a lot more dynamic movement. And I don't know if this looks like a tree with these settings or like one of those inflatable guys with the arms that's in used car sales lots, but we're getting somewhere either way. Just one branch on this tree is maybe feeling a little bit bare, so let's collapse this branch null. And I'm gonna hit play while I'm doing this. I can hold control and drag and just place a couple more branches in some random spots. And it's pretty satisfying to let them each droop and fall into place as you're putting them in various spots on this tree trunk. And each one of them has their own dynamics. So again, you could grab this joint and wiggle it around and watch your tree react to anything you have in your scene, whether you wanted to put some shake on this for an earthquake or put some wind in the scene like in the original example. This technique can end up being pretty powerful.
Now, another cool thing I was able to